Everyone's paying hundreds of dollars a month for Claude Code sub-agents, and there's an open source agent that does the same thing, runs on an $8 VPS or on your local machine and actually remembers what it learned the last time. I've been building with Hermes Agent for weeks now, and today I'm showing you how to set up multi-agent teams that teach themselves new skills after every complex task you throw at them. What we're going to walk through today is the architecture of Hermes agents, from isolated sub-agents to a self-improving skill system to deployment patterns that go from your laptop to serverless GPU clusters. Hermes hit #1 on OpenRouter in May. It's picked up over 170,000 GitHub stars in about 4 months, and it just crossed 7 deployment backends. I run production agents every single day, and I've tested Hermes alongside Claude Code and alongside OpenClaw, and I did the security review that none of the other tutorials on YouTube mention. We're covering the architecture, the skill engine, deployment, the security findings you need before going live, and the one risk that nobody in this space is willing to talk about. So let's jump straight in.
Hey, I'm Johnny Nel. I spent years building businesses the old hard way, managing teams, scaling operations, and doing everything manually. Today, everything I built, from automations and no-code infrastructures to fully AI SaaS products, has AI helping in one way or another. Firstly, let me quickly show you this. In South Africa, we call this a braai. I build with AI tools that, in my opinion, anyone can learn to use. My mission is simple: to help creators, entrepreneurs, and business owners get clarity with AI. Let's build smarter together and enjoy this video.
If you're paying for closed source and APIs and your agent forgets everything between the sessions, you're rebuilding the same workflows over and over again. So here's the timeline. Hermes Agent went from 0 to #1 on OpenRouter in under 90 days. Over 170,000 stars on GitHub, 1,400 contributors, and 7 major releases in the last 3 months. The builders who learn this architecture right now are going to be 6 months ahead of everyone else scrambling to catch up when this becomes the default way to run agents, especially after identifying what happened with Claude and the US government, and also looking at what happened to OpenClaw, the struggle it is to resolve the bugs, the struggle it is to update, and this is really where Hermes excels. But if you do skip the security section in this video, you're one bad prompt injection away from giving an AI full shell access to your server. I do allow you to consider to stay for that part. Let's look at point #1, the architecture. Let me share with you how Hermes Agent handles multi-agent work and why it matters. When Hermes spins up a sub-agent, that sub-agent gets into its own conversation context, its own terminal session, and its own Python RPC execution scripts. There is zero context pollution between agents. So if you have 3 agents working on different parts of a problem, one handling the tests, one handling implementation, one reviewing security, they are not stepping on each other's context windows. Now, I'm going to be very straight with you about something most Hermes tutorials skip. OpenAI codecs, OpenClaw sub-agents also gets isolated context. This is not a big architectural difference that people claim it is. The real difference is what happens after the task is done. For example, sub-agents are disposable. They do their work, they return a summary, and disappear. Everything they learned dies with them. Hermes sub-agents generate a persistent skill record that carries forward to the next session and the session thereafter. That persistence is the actual differentiator, not the isolation model. One more thing to know, Hermes sub-agents cannot talk to each other directly. The parent agent coordinates everything through structured results. It's not true peer-to-peer multi-agent orchestration, at least not yet. Parent-child delegation is exactly what you want, but if you need agents collaborating in real time, that's not here today. And that leads me to point #2, the skill engine. This is the feature that made me rethink half of my workflow. After any complex task involving 5 or more tool calls, Hermes automatically generates a structured skill record. Not a log, not a summary, a reusable skill file that captures the task pattern, the solution approach, the edge cases it hit, and the corrected path. Here's how it plays out. You ask Hermes to set up a Docker compose config for 3 server stack. It does it, maybe takes a couple of iterations, but when it's done, it writes a skill that captures the entire approach. Next time you or anyone on your team asks for something similar, Hermes retrieves that skill and applies it. First attempt, no iterations needed, and independent testing shows a 40% speed up on recurring tasks once the skill library has a few dozen entries. Now here's the part that the marketing just won't tell you. Self-learning is turned off by default. If you install Hermes and expect it to start improving on its own, nothing happens. You will have to enable it manually, and once you do, the curator system evaluates your skills on a 7-day cycle, grading them across 4 dimensions: usage frequency, success rate, execution time, and user satisfaction. Skills that don't perform get pruned, and skills that overlap gets consolidated. It's a smart system, but it requires you to flip the switch. And there's also one skill that I haven't seen anyone mention yet: belief rot. Your agent builds skills based on what worked last month. If your stack changes, if your dependencies update, those old skills don't update themselves. Your agent gets confidently worse over time because it's applying patterns that no longer fit. There's no vision control on skills by default and no audit trail. You need to review what your agent is learning periodically, or you end up with an assistant that's optimizing for yesterday's reality. If you want the actual configuration files and this entire setup, the deployment configurations, the security hardening checklist I built after the audit findings I'm about to show you, the skill templates that help the learning engine compound faster, that is all linked down in the description in the AI Founders Vault community. I invite you to accept your invitation and let's continue to build stronger together. Let's look at point 3, deployment. One of the biggest complaints about open source agents is the deployment complexity. You see, Hermes solves this with 7 backend options, and each one maps to a real use case. For example, local is your dev environment. You're testing, you're iterating, you're running things on your own machine. Docker gives you container isolation with Linux capabilities dropped by default. No privilege escalation, PID limits, and resource caps. If you're running untrusted code or letting the agent execute shell commands, Docker is your minimum safety layer. SH lets you run agents on remote machines. You point Hermes at a $6 to $8 VPS over SSH, and now you have a remote agent running around the clock without burning through your laptop. That is if you want to go down that route. You can also just install it on your local device if you do have one. Singularity is for HPC environments and research labs where Docker isn't available. Modal gives you serverless GPU compute. Your agent spins up on demand, runs the tasks, and hibernates. Per second billing, 0 cost when idle. Daytona offers serverless workspace persistence, and Versal Sandbox is there for teams already on that infrastructure. The config for each backend is a YAML block, and I'll walk you through the 2 most common setups. Local for development and Docker with security hardening for anything that touches real systems. Which gets us to point number 4, multi-platform gateways. Here's what makes Hermes different from running separate agents on every platform. One agent instance, save memory, same skill library across 15 platforms. Telegram, Discord, Slack, WhatsApp, Signal, Matrix, SMS, email, CLI, and the list goes on, so much more. Most builders end up with a different agent for each platform. A Telegram bot here, a Slack integration there, a CLI tool for development. Each one is a separate context, and none of them remember what the others did. Hermes solves this at the gateway level. You configure your channels once, and the agent maintains full conversational context across all of them. So here's what it looks like in picture. I kicked off a deployment task from my CLI on my laptop. While I was out, the agent had a config error and pinged me on Telegram. I triaged it from my phone and brainstormed how to get it fixed. And by the time I sat back down on my desk, the task was done. Same agent, same memory, same skill library the entire time. No context was lost because I switched platforms. The starter combo I recommend is Telegram plus CLI. Telegram gives you mobile access for quick interactions on the go, where the CLI gives you the full terminal experience for complex tasks. I would set those 2 up first if I was you. Add different channels to your workflow demands later. Let's look at the most important part here, and I cannot stress this enough. This needs to be set up out the bat once it's installed. Don't go uploading documentation, asking it to do tasks, connecting it to any of the platforms we just discussed. First, inside of terminal, inside of the CLI, ensure that you have the security reality set up. This is the section I care about most and the one every other tutorial on YouTube is skipping. I did a proper security review with Hermes Agent, and what I found should change how you deploy it. An independent audit of version 0.8.0 conducted by Security Research 8 and published on GitHub issued 7826 identified 4 critical severity findings and 9 high severity findings in the default configuration. Let me repeat that in layman's terms. The default configs ships with 4 critical security issues. Here's what the audit actually found. First, the default persistent model is allow all, meaning every command is permitted unless you manually restrict it. Secondly, on the local backend, the agent passes arbitrary commands directly to bash with no sandbox. No syscall restrictions, no command allow lists. Your agent has the same system access to your user account. But here's the finding that should genuinely alarm you, and the one nobody's covering. Skills can become persistent prompt injection vectors. An attacker poisons a skill once, and your agent executes that payload every single time it reuses that skill in future sessions. The skill guard is regex only, and agent-created skills get an ask verdict instead of a block for dangerous findings. GitHub's issues 3968 tracks this as APO critical. The prompt injection scanner only checks user skill prompts. Skill content loaded at execution time is never scanned. On top of that, Hermes had a real supply chain incident. In March 2026, a threat actor published backdoored versions of LightL on PyPI. LLM was a dependency that Hermes used for routing API calls. The malicious code harvested API keys, cloud credentials, SSH keys, and database passwords. News Research removed the dependency after the incident, but if you were running Hermes before version 0.13, you need to check your credential exposure. So here's what you lock down before going live. Space isolation in configurations. If you're using Docker, configure the Docker with a cap drop all to new privilege and read-only root file system. Set up an explicit permission manifest. Hermes supports defining exactly which tools and system calls each agent can access. Use it. Don't leave the defaults, and minimize the environment variables you forward into containers because anything forwarded is readable and exfiltratable. And rotate any credentials the agent touches on a schedule. The builders who do this right ships with confidence, and the ones who skip this are one bad loop away from an incident report. Here's what happens after you run 50, 100, 200 tasks through Hermes with self-learning enabled. Your skill library isn't generic anymore. It's built entirely from your work, your code base, your decisions, your edge cases. Independent benchmarks show 40% faster execution on recurring tasks compared to a fresh instance. No other user has the same skill library you do. But I want to be real about this. The skill engine is generating persistent prompts with 2 cool patterns. It's not modifying its own weights, and it's not doing reinforcement learning. It's more like auto-generated SOPs for artificial general intelligence. That framing matters because the marketing makes it sound more magical than it is. But what it actually is still incredibly useful. An agent that saves and reuses what worked before, tailored to your specific environment. That compounding effect is the real reason to build on Hermes. Not because it's free, not because it's open source, because over time it becomes something no API subscription can replicate. An agent shaped by your actual work. And guys, if you want the builder's perspective on AI agents, not the hype, subscribe. I ship these systems and I show you what actually happens when they hit production. Drop a comment, hype the video if you feel called to it, and if you are building with open source agents or staying on Claude, OpenClaw, and OpenAI, I want to know what's working and what broke. And if you want the deployment configurations, hardening files with the checklist, the skill templates, and the full walkthrough of my production Hermes setup, they're all inside of the AI Founders Vault. The link is down in the description, and I'll see you inside there.